start off with, I spoke with Donnie yesterday, and I secured Donnie to be on our Monday call. I've limited him to 15 to 20 minutes, not because I didn't want him, because I think that you guys, we have tech talk on Thursdays every week. You have his availability to get him anytime you want. And just now that it's in an emergency, we're cramming a bunch of stuff in. So we will have him, and I'm going to keep him to 15 to 20 minutes. So make sure whatever questions you have are on point. He is going to do a live broadcast of how to post in a lead accelerator ad. So he's going to do that live for you. So make sure you're taking notes. I'll make sure it's recorded so we can send them out to you. If you want to ask any questions, just watch the recording. He says it'll probably take him about 10 minutes to explain it and go over. In actuality, it only takes about 5. So we'll do that, and then we'll have 5 or 10 minutes for Q&A about whatever you want to ask Donnie. So, John, any of those tech questions you had for me the other day, Donnie's the guy, right? So I want to make sure we get answers on those. So here's what I do.
You're the guy. You're the tech guy, right?
I am a tech magnet guru. So what I do is I hang around with people that are smarter than me, and now I have answers to everything. They just don't come from me.
Exactly.
One of the things I learned a long time ago is I don't have to have the answers for everything or be the smartest person in the room. I don't need to be the source. I need to be the resource for the agents to get the answers that they need. And if we take that approach with our customers, you don't have to know the answers to everything. When they ask you, what are the schools rated in this area? We very fast want to blurt out A-rated, B-rated, whatever the case is. And the moment you do, you're subject to a lawsuit. You might be subject to a lawsuit. So I always learned a long time ago, you don't have to have all of the answers, guys. You just need to point people in the right direction. So I thought, here's what I'm going to do today. I've got, I don't know, probably about 10 journals full of notes and classes. And I opened up one that I've taken back from 10 years ago on a shifting market. Do you think these notes are useful today?
Yes.
This is from 10 years ago, guys. So I'm going to go over a lot of the notes. First of all, is everybody doing okay? Is anybody in need of anything, medicine, or I hate to say toilet paper, anything we can do to help?
I'm in need of closings.
Closings. We can help with that one, John. So I'm just going to give you some of the stuff and just open it up to conversation. I would really appreciate everybody adding to the conversation. So this isn't a lecture. Lectures I find very boring. So that means I'm looking for interaction today. Is everybody okay with interaction?
Yes.
For sure.
And if you want to take some notes, Nancy, if you put your camera down a little, it looks like you're just a head. There you go. All we saw was from the chin up. There you go.
Sorry.
It's very distracting for some people. So here's what I'm going to talk about, getting to the closing table. So in prior times, 10 years ago, it was a challenge to get to the closing table. And if you noticed, I had a conversation earlier, one of our agents, what's going on in California and Pennsylvania? What can you tell me in those two states?
Martial law.
They're shut down.
They're shut down. Can you have any closings?
No.
No.
Can you do
In
any
New York
showings?
too now.
No.
They declared martial law.
In New York too.
New York,
Illinois is-
so it's 3 states now?
Illinois is going to be shut down tomorrow.
So that's 4 states.
Yeah.
Could it be just a matter of time before Florida shuts down?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So guys, we need to take all the precaution. Is it better to be precautionary or reactionary?
Precautionary.
So exactly what are we doing in precaution of because we may be shut down and then it's beyond our control and there's not a thing we could do, right? And we're not going to be in violation of that. If that's what happens, we're going to definitely do exactly what our local governments tell us to do. They may tell us to just lock the door. I mean, all of our offices are open. We don't want anybody working from the offices. We'd like you to work from home for obvious reasons right now. So I'm just going to go over some of the notes that I had. First thing it said is get clear on what might happen. And what might happen is we don't know if Market Center is going to close down and the state's going to close down. Get clear on what might happen and how to handle it so you can find ways to anticipate problems and head them off. So I'm talking about being precautionary, right? So what are the systems and models that you guys are doing right now? Maybe you weren't doing them 2 weeks ago, but you are doing them right now to be precautionary of your closing, say a pending.
I'm moving them up.
Moving them up. Say, and guys, that's creating urgency is probably the biggest thing that we can do for our agents. Create urgency, move them up. So is anybody doing anything with their transaction to close if you have one, or executive assistants? What do you?
I'm just making
you
sure
have
to
a
touch base
transaction?
daily.
Say that again?
I'm making sure to touch base daily with everyone. Everyone wants to know if there are any changes day to day, even if there's nothing. Just giving a daily update kind of just lets everybody know we're still all pressing forward right now.
Absolutely. So that's a great philosophy with customers, with your mortgage, your loan officers, with your transaction to close. You need to be touching base on a daily basis with every single person, buyers, sellers, title, mortgage, transaction to close, administrative assistants. Guys, communicate, communicate, communicate. I've never seen a transaction fall apart because of over communication. I have seen many a deal fall apart because we didn't communicate. Right? So that may look like calling up your transaction to close and just overseeing and making sure that deadlines are being hit for inspections, for title, for whatever that is. Right? So it's, again, we've got to work hand in hand. They've got to understand we need to inspect what we expect, right? Don't take for granted they're getting the job done. You need to double check is what I'm saying. The next thing I wrote is talk about lead generating skills versus solution solving skills. Those are two different skill sets. So lead generating skills, what does Gary say in a pivoting market? Double down on your lead gen, right? Double down on your lead gen. What about solution solving skills? Those are your customer care skills. What are we doing for that?
I'm making calls, just checking in. How you doing?
The care calls. Irene, that's exactly what I'm looking for. That's exactly what we should be doing, Irene, is the care calls. Just check in with the people, just the way I just asked everybody here. How's everybody doing was the first question I asked. Does anybody need anything? Medication, toilet paper, whatever. You need to just tell people or show people that we care about them. So that's important. So is there anything else anybody else is doing besides the care calls?
Well, as far as showings, I had 2 showings yesterday and I did them through video. Made the seller more comfortable and my buyer more comfortable. I did put on a pair of surgical gloves. I asked the seller, I hope you're not offended. I put on a pair of surgical gloves. I didn't want to touch doorknobs. And she actually was very grateful. She said, I didn't even think about that. Thank you. I'm going to have my listing agent put a box here. So that's what I'm doing. That's really the only business that's changed for me. I'm kind of concerned. I'm writing 2 offers and I'm just kind of concerned. I want to get them under contract like today. So I don't have to have that conversation of scared. Like I was telling you earlier, Rich, it's easier to keep somebody in contract than to get them in contract over the next day or 2. So, but I'll handle those objections when they arise today, tonight, and tomorrow.
Yeah, well, you're doing a great job. You're creating urgency, Irene. Speed up the process to get them under contract. Don't let them, there's nothing to think about. Guys, did everybody see what happened this week with interest rates?
Yeah, they plummeted.
They went up, plummeted. They went up.
They went up.
They went up
They
about
did.
1.5 points. You're
Yep.
looking at over 4. Guys, last week it was 3%. This week it's 4.625.
Didn't even see that.
Nobody saw that coming. So we have some unstable times going on in the market. When I made a couple of calls yesterday, some loan offices to find out what's going on. So just to put that in perspective, that means a buyer a week ago had $30,000 more buying power than they do today, right? Because 1% in interest rate equals 10% in purchase power on a $200,000 house. That means 1.5% means they're getting a house that's $30,000 less for the same payment.
Right.
Create urgency with that, guys. So one of the notes I wrote down in here too, is I said, I put down, in a pivoting market or I had shifting market, pivoting market. Skills become more essential, sharpen your skill set, right? And that's exactly why Keller Williams International right now is putting on so many classes. We have on KW Connect, we have a ton of classes. There's 10 to 12 classes a day. I'm doing one every day with you, right? You've got so many options. Guys, sitting home and sitting in front of a television is not an option, right? Because is there anything good on news? Has anybody heard anything about China had no cases of coronavirus yesterday and that they see their way through this already?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
All I hear about is Italy, California, Pennsylvania, now New York and Illinois. The news sensationalizes on fear. They prey on us with fear to get you to keep coming back. Fear is like a drug. Guys, stay away from the TVs, to be honest with you. You take as much education, double down on your education at this point. So next thing I wrote down is attitude. Attitude. So there's 3 types of people. Those people that say nothing will go wrong, those people that say everything will go wrong, and those people that say anything can go wrong. Now, I just want you to think about this. The person that says nothing can go wrong, do we not have blind spots? The person that says nothing, oh, listen, don't worry about it. Nothing's going to go wrong. Does that person have a blind spot, a huge blind spot?
Mhm.
Yeah. What about the person that says, oh my God, the sky is falling. Everything that can go wrong has gone wrong. Is that person negative?
Yeah.
For sure.
Does anybody want to hang around a negative person like that?
No.
Right? And then the person that say anything can go wrong, this is the person who prepares for everything. In other words, again, they're hoping for the best, but they're prepared for the worst. They have a plan B or a plan C, a contingency program. They have something that's going to go on. When you do that, when we hit, and guys, do we not have speed bumps in real estate when we have pendings?
Yeah.
Sometimes do we not know when they're going to show up?
Yeah.
Guys, when you hit a speed bump, if you have a plan, an answer before it happens, you're able to handle it more professionally and more confidently. Because if you're nervous, what happens to the person? Your customer.
They're nervous. They feed off you.
Yeah, then they're going to cancel. Guys, we have to be that rock. We have to be that person that gives them the stability that they're looking for. That's imperative. Inspections. Let's talk about inspections. So now, if you're on the buy side, what can you do as a precautionary measure as we're talking about home inspections?
Oh, well, I'll tell you, for my 2, if I get them under contract, I'm going to try like a 3-day inspection period.
The sooner the better, right? And if
Right.
it's going to fall apart because of inspections, let it happen sooner than later.
Right.
That's the first thing. What's the next thing you can do?
Make
How
sure
about inspect what you expect? Are you guys coaching people through the inspections before the inspection? In other words, so Irene, if you're one of my buyers, I'm sitting down and I'm going to have a conversation. So Irene, the very next thing we're going to do, now that the contract is executed, we've got it signed, sealed, and delivered, is we're going to order a home inspection. You're going to have to choose a home inspection. I've got 3 or 4 I could recommend, or you can choose your own. We're going to coordinate that home inspection. Now, I don't want you to panic, because on a home inspection, depending upon the age of the house, we normally have about 15 to 20 things wrong with a house that was built just, let's say, 2 years ago. And if that house is 30 or 40 years old, you might have 50 or 60 things wrong. Now, those aren't the things that typically would cause a transaction to cancel. They're usually cosmetic. So it can be as simple as the grouting needs to be recaulked on a bathroom floor or tub. It could be, I always see that one of the electrical outlets is polarized. It doesn't mean your house is going to burn down. The wiring is crossed, but it's not a danger. So there's a lot of different things that could show up. Here are the things that I'm looking for as a real estate agent. I'm looking for a WDO. Is there mold in the house? Or is there wood-destroying organisms, termites, things of that nature? I'm looking at the roof. It's a major expenditure if the roof is bad. I'm looking at HVAC, the air conditioning unit. I'm looking for structural engineer cracks on the report where they can fit like the foundation can fit more than a width of a quarter in there. Those may lead to some of the things that might eventually cancel the deal. The rest of everything else about, paint and in a drawer in the kitchen cabinets, that's not going to cancel it. So before we get the home inspection, Irene, can we agree right now that we're not going to worry about the cosmetic repairs that they put on the report?
Absolutely. And what I generally say is we're looking for safe, sound, and secure. Most of my buyers are VA buyers, and that's their standard, safe, sound, and secure. So I always kind of go in with that expectation, because you are going to find settlement cracks, and you're going to find this, and you're going to find that. So I generally go in saying, listen, we're just looking for safe, sound, and secure.
Yeah.
So
I think it's imperative that we have the inspections done as soon as possible, create urgency. I think that we set the expectation before the inspection, because once they get the 30-page report, what does a first-time home buyer do when they see, oh my God, I've got 52 items? That they panic.
we freak out, for sure.
Yeah. Now, do people need another reason to freak out with the chaos that's going on in the world?
No.
Because it's our job to calm them down before they get the inspection.
Right.
So inspect what you expect. Now, what if you're on the listing side? What can you do as a precautionary measure?
I usually
somebody
tell
else
my
hop in.
sellers, I'm sorry. Somebody
Yeah.
else. I usually tell my sellers that they're looking for safety issues. And again, I talk about the cosmetic, things like that, but I say they're really looking for safety. Like if you're supposed to have a GFI, they're probably going to ask you to put that in. Or if your electrical panel is old, they might ask that to be replaced. And then I remind them they're selling it as is, but they still have to keep it up, and they still have to take a look at this. If this report comes in and says there are safety issues, then we'll talk about it at that time. But I tell them not to panic until we actually hear something.
I love that. So what can we do as a precautionary measure? It's your listing. Before it goes into contract, what can we do?
Have a pre-inspection done.
There you go, Sherry. You should be advising all of your listings to get a pre-inspection done. Now, why is that important in a pivoting or shifting market?
Taking things off the table, if you already know that they're taken care of, now you've got that report to share ahead of time.
Yeah, let's say in Laura's example, there was 2 GFIs that were missing or were not functioning in a house, and they see this on the report. If you caught it before it went under contract, you can easily fix it for $100, right? Get an electrician. You could do it yourself for $40. Hire an electrician for, say, $150 to have both outlets replaced. Now that the person's in panic mode because of the chaos that's going on, they see this report. Is it possible you lose the buyer? Does anybody have so many leads that they can just allow deals to fall apart? Or guys, that's what they talk about when they say bulletproof the transaction. So every listing, I would highly, highly, highly recommend to do a pre-inspection and have the seller fix anything that you feel may cause the transaction to collapse once it does go under contract.
Is there
That
any,
makes sense.
is there any concern that then the seller's going to say, I fixed everything, they better not be, and they come with requests, and now they're like, I already spent all this money. How in the world can we have any issues? Because that's what I always worry about.
Yeah, that's a valid point, Ruth. And here's what I would say. If you were the seller, I'd say, you know what, that's a great point. And let me just set the expectation. When we do a home inspection, we'll have that and we'll fix everything that's on there. Now, what if the buyer gets their own home inspection? It's a different person. Might they find something that our inspector missed? Is that possible?
Always.
Yeah. So that's realistic. So, and let me just go back to Ruth. Why is it that you want to sell your house in the first place? So I'm going to bring my seller back to motivation to make sure they understand. The reason we're going through this right now, Ruth, and we're just role playing, is so I can get your house sold. That is what you want, right? And guys, remember, we've got to reinforce, set the expectation. That's a great point. You may get someone that says that. Set the expectation and let them know everything we're doing is to get them to the closing table. That's why they're hiring us.
You know, something else you can do once you have that report, Rich, what are your thoughts? If you share that then with the buyer who's going under contract in order to keep the inspection period short, and that way you can move to the closing table faster.
Yeah. I think great. I think you speak to the home inspector too to make sure they're using the right language. Have you ever done a home inspection that you read the report and they're using language that's not conducive for you to get to a closing table? In other words, have you ever read a report, they're just using language that says, they don't say the life expectancy of the roof is 2 years, they say immediate replacement. They're using language that's just going to terminate your transaction. So I just
Doomsday inspectors.
the what, Beth?
We call those doomsday inspectors. Like the
Doomsday
sky is
inspector.
falling. Everything's terrible. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just make sure the language they're using is correct before the inspection. And we're all doing this for the same reason. We want to help the buyer, right? If it's our buyer, we want to help them. But we don't want them to use language that's going to cancel or terminate the contract unnecessarily.
So one of my listings, I have had an inspection done, and on the comments for the agents, it does state that it has a clean inspection report, just to kind of, help with the sale of the home, just because it's already had one. So.
And if you have a
That's
clean,
great.
if you get a really good home inspection, I almost said health inspection, a home inspection, that too. Why not post that as an attachment in MLS?
Yeah.
Say, look, let them know we did a pre-home inspection, because if it comes down between one or two houses, might that be a deciding or determining factor for the person to choose your listing as opposed to someone else's?
Yeah.
Now, if it's an ugly home inspection, I'm not sure I'd make that public. However, I would, now that you know about it, right? You need to have those things fixed or disclosed. Right? Make sure you understand that. Disclosure laws take over. Any other questions about inspections, whether you're on the buy side, the sell side, create urgency, do pre-home inspections, get everything fixed before the contracts come in. Next, loan offices. What are you guys doing with loan offices?
We're not making them go any faster.
So what are you doing to help you get to the transaction, the closing table?
I think I spoke about this before. I have my lenders, insurance agents, title agents. They're all co-listing with me, or co-paying for marketing with me.
Oh, I love that. That's not even what I was looking for.
You
but I
do
absolutely
movement.
love that.
I do it as well. They're on. If they want to see my leads, they co-market with me. They're on different marketing materials, direct mail items, and everything with me. So.
So what about how often should you be communicating with mortgage brokers or loan offices?
Daily.
Constantly.
Pretty much daily, guys, you're down to at this point. Pretty much daily. So that's imperative. And one of the things that was really big back 10, 12 years ago, and I haven't seen it yet, it may start, how many people, just say yes, if you were in real estate in 2008, how many of us on this line?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so out of 33 people, about 5, right? So there's not much. So basically less than 20% were in the last shift that we had. What I witnessed 12 years ago is a lot of agents were saying that buyers, listing agents were put right in MLS, that all buyers had to be pre-qualified through their own lender. Remember that, Sherry?
Yep.
So expect that might come back. Now, some people might say that, well, that's illegal. That's a RESPA violation. Well, not really. I'm not an attorney. And here's what I'm going to say. They're not saying you have to use their mortgage broker. They're saying that they have to be pre-approved by the mortgage broker. In other words, are there mortgage brokers or loan offices out there that will write a pre-approval on a piece of toilet paper just to send it out to show them a house? And
Quicken Loans.
have you ever worked with those before? Yeah. So you may consider, or you may see where listing agents are mandating that all buyers have to be pre-approved. That doesn't mean they have to use them. And be open-minded. Maybe that mortgage source is giving a better deal than the one that they've already got a quote on.
Rich, we have to get that approved. Should we put that in the listing agreement? Because technically we could be driving buyers away from showing that property.
Yes.
So
If
we have
that's
to
something-
write that lingo in the additional terms, right, of the listing agreement?
If that's something you think would be a strategy to help, in our case with Keller Williams Mortgage, I can't see how that would hurt. It's going to help all the buyers, even if the other agent's not from Keller Williams. I think that's a great thing. I'm talking more if you're on the buy side. You be aware as a buyer's agent, you may see more listing agents require this now, because that was big 12 years ago. They didn't want to waste time when putting a house under contract with somebody who wasn't qualified, especially in a downturn. What do banks normally do with their belt? They make it harder to get a mortgage. So if they're going to tighten their belts, I want you to think about that for a second. You may start to see a lot of that. Just be aware it exists, guys. What are you doing with documents? You're the buyer's agent. As far as are you checking up with the loan offices, the originating offices, to see when the docs are in? Now, is it true that when buyers go into contract, sometimes they take 4 or 5 business days or a week to send the documents in? Guys, if they're my buyers, I'm making sure all of the docs go to the mortgage broker before I show them houses. There's a difference between pre-approved and pre-qualified. Right? You have pre-qualified, which is toilet paper, right? You understand that? We have pre-approved, which is better. And there's 2 things better than that. Next is desktop underwritten. Desktop underwritten. That is a loan approval with the absence of an address and an appraisal. That means it's fully approved. Does everybody get that? So I would be asking mortgage brokers to get desktop underwritten. That's an approval. All you need is an address. You need an address, to survey, and an appraisal. And the best is cash, right? Those are the only 2 things better. So you've got pre-qual, pre-approved, desktop underwritten, they call it DU, and then they've got cash, right? So know that we're having these conversations to set our clients up for success, because there's nothing more frustrating and a challenging time when you spend all this time and effort with a buyer, or if you're the listing, and you get down to 2 days before closing, and all of a sudden what happens? I am so sorry, here's the letter of declination, the buyer didn't qualify. Now, how could that happen after they've already pre-approved it? It's because the mortgage broker didn't run their credit score. They didn't get the verification of employment. They didn't get the verification of income. They didn't run any of those things.
Or it could happen right now with people being laid off, couldn't it?
Absolutely. So when a person goes, so know this, when a buyer goes under contract, certain things, number 1, they should never change their job. Stay with the job. Get a new job after you close. Number 2, don't go buy a new car, boat, or furniture and finance it, because that goes to your debt to income ratio. Those are all mistakes that buyers make. They get so excited, they go buy a boat, furniture. A lot of times they'll buy furniture and finance it to put in the house, right, Jane? And now all of a sudden their debt to income ratio exceeds Fannie and Freddie guidelines, and now that approval is no longer an approval.
Yeah.
So these are the conversations we're talking about. We have to come. That needs to be our new skill set. So
one thing also, Rich, is that I work with a wholesale lender, and he's been writing loans with subprime. I mean, and they're still, I mean, they're 1% higher than the general ones, but it's whatever I guess I look, he's working outside the box if he has to.
There you go.
As long as it's disclosed.
So have options with creative financing, John. That's what I'm hearing you say.
I'm glad I just heard that comment about the wholesale lender. I haven't heard that term before, but that gives us another option in case we run into some trouble.
Yeah, in case you have Jane, if you have somebody, Jane is in the Citrus office, John is in Spring Hill, just contact John, he'll give you his lender. Okay. Right, they can lend
for a referral fee.
For a referral fee. or a good lead. So next is, guys, remove contingencies. Remove contingencies. A lot of times the buyers have so many contingencies on a contract. Don't write contracts with contingencies. Now, the obvious, we know, appraisal and loan, right? We can't remove those or shouldn't remove those. However, don't make it contingent upon the sale of another house right now, or any, it's contingent upon me getting a promotion and a $50,000 income, whatever. I've seen some crazy contingencies over the years, right? And it's just, they don't work. So remove the contingencies other than appraisal and financing. Don't make this contingent upon them buying the furniture. If you have a vacation rental you're selling, be very careful with furniture, because some of the roadblocks that pop up with that is at the sales time, they say, well, okay, so now how much do you estimate the furniture to be? You say 10,000. They say, great. Who's paying the sales tax on the furniture now? And what I'm hearing is, could be your commissions just got less by 7% or 6.75%. There's sales tax involved when you sell furniture. So understand that. Be careful of your verbiage on the contract. Next thing, deadlines. What are you doing now? If you have a transaction to close, take it off your plate, still double check with them. Deadlines. You've got to hit your deadlines, guys. Right? You've got the finance clause, title. There's a lot of deadlines on a contract. So if you're a solo agent, when I started off, I had a big white board. It was probably 4 or 5 feet wide by 3 feet high. And I had the addresses of all of my pendings. And I had categories, finance contingency remove, survey, title, insurance. And I checked them off as they came in. And if I didn't have all checks, I didn't get to the last box which said clear to close, CTC, clear to close, which is music to our ears in our industry, right? So make sure that you have your deadlines. Communication with customers, guys, I have down here. So I will tell you, in times of chaos, the lack of information breeds more fear. It breeds more fear. So it's important that you communicate several times a week, whether it's every day or every other day at the very least. When you have, especially, a big challenge I see is when somebody goes under contract, they go pending, we breathe in, we go, oh, I can breathe now. No, you can't. Now it's time to tell them what's next. Next is the home inspection. After that, it's a finance contingency. After whatever it's going on, you need to keep them informed all the way. And sometimes the best message we can give to people is to tell them the update is, I don't have an update.
Right.
Sometimes that's the best message. We think, and I think the biggest complaint I get as a broker or OP is the agent, customers are calling me up saying, we went under contract 3 weeks ago and I haven't heard from your agent ever since. That's just unacceptable, especially in today's time, because they're very unstable. They've got cold feet. They're having second thoughts about buying real estate. You need to keep them involved in the loop every day or every other day. Otherwise, they're going to let someone can we just agree that every family member, every one of us has at least one family member who's a Debbie Downer? Is that a fair assumption?
For sure.
Maybe a few more than one.
Right. I agree with you. So if we're not the voice of reason, breeding positivity into our customers, keeping them informed, could they jump onto the ledge and want to jump off, even if they live on the first floor?
For sure.
Okay, just want to make sure. So communicate. Next, appraisals. So what was one of the things for the 5 or 6 agents who were in real estate in 2008, 7, 6, 9, what happened with appraisals?
They would come in short.
So what does that mean? You've got new agents on the phone, Irene. What does that mean? Explain to them who would come in short.
Well, the appraisal has to, again, I'm going to talk from a VA standpoint because that's what my business is. So the lender will only loan on the appraised value of the house. So if you have a house for $220 and it only appraises for $210, their lender is only going to lend on $210. So you have to kind of figure out a way to bridge that $10,000 gap.
So now you're 100% correct. What do you think, what role does the bank play, especially, it's still fresh in their mind what happened 12 years ago, right? 10 years ago. So what do you think the bank's opinion is on appraisals? Do they want to see them go up fast? Or do they want to see them stabilize or even go down? Where is their risk the highest from the bank?
The risk is the highest when they raise too fast.
Correct. Is that not been the case for the last 8 years, 10 years? The last 8 years, we could lip read, I saw. So for the last 8 years, prices have been going up astronomically. The banks are going to pull their belt tighter. They're going to put pressure on appraisers. Has anybody ever seen when an appraisal comes in and a house gets appraised at the value of the house and the bank says, no, we want a second appraisal? And guess what? You, Mr. Buyer, have to pay for it. We don't believe the first appraisal.
Sorry, I just muted you for like 10 minutes. Or the last like 10 seconds, I just muted you. So if you were addressing me, I apologize.
It's okay.
I didn't hear a word you said.
Guys, be aware that the banks are going to put a large amount of pressure on the appraisal industry to come in at lower price.
I'll tell you what, we just had that happen on one of our houses that were for sale. He came in 12,000 lower than the sales price, and I was shocked.
Yeah. So could we set the expectation with our sellers, if we're the listing agent, that that's a possibility? And that's where your negotiating skills are going to have to come into play. Remember, there's no right or wrong here. There's no such thing as, well, we can't sell it at 220 in Irene example. It's got to sell for 110. What it comes down to is how bad does the buyer want to buy and how bad does the seller want to sell? Because the buyer can bring extra cash to the table and still close. The seller can lower the price to the appraised value, or they can negotiate, meet in the middle, or anywhere between those two prices and get to the closing table. It comes down to, this is not an appraisal issue. It comes down to buyer and seller have an issue now. So make sure that you expect this. I'm telling you what to expect in a challenging market. Appraisals are going to start you're going to start to see more and more of this, James.
So we're going to start seeing the appraisals coming lower than really the price of the house.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
In our instance, the buyer and the seller both work together to work it out. So it's okay, but that's good.
Yeah. So
Wouldn't
just
that
make
be a
sure.
trend in the next 6 months versus now, because that's how they're pulling comps the last 6 months of sales.
You know what? They might. And at some point, remember, in any shifting market, let's say in 2006, when the market shifted from the best market we've ever seen in this country to probably the worst market in 2008, the shift happened fast, John. And at some point, the prices stopped going up. The banks, where there was a lot of foreclosures, the banks put pressure on the appraisals, and they would start coming lower and lower and lower. Even though the comps substantiated a higher price, John, the appraisers wouldn't give them. So that's what happens in a shifting market. There's pressure from the banks on that industry and the appraisal industry to come in lower and lower. They want to protect in a down market. We're not in a down market, not yet. In a down market, the bank wants to protect the buyer and the investor.
I noticed that in 2014 in the turn, when the market was coming back up, they were doing that too. They kept tightening they kept their belts tight.
Yep. And anytime there's a shift in the market or a pivot, they do that. So that's important to understand the warning signs. The warning signs are all there. Now, I haven't seen this. Jane has one already. That could be the start of a new trend, a new benchmark. So I just want to make sure that you're aware, because once you know, now you can advise your customers and clients how to actually get them from beginning the listing to the closing table, or from the buyer consultation to the closing table. Doesn't matter buyer or seller. You need to set those expectations. And here's the last point that I have in my notes, which is vitally important, guys, is most importantly, stay calm. Stay calm. We need to be cool, calm, and collected, because if we're not calm, I can guarantee you, your customer, they're looking for us for stability and security. If we're not confident in what's going on in our surroundings, in our industry, And if we don't know what's going on, I'm telling you, they will bail on you faster than the people on the Titanic. They're just going to jump ship. So make sure you're informed. Don't make any statements such as, if I was in your shoes, Nancy, I would never do that. Right? Because I can't tell you how many times I've heard agents shoot themselves in the foot by saying, well, I wouldn't do that, John, or I wouldn't do that, Paul. I'm not a buyer in this market. So those are the things that self-sabotage. Your intention is not to self-sabotage. And sometimes we can't help but share our own personal feelings, which definitely will hurt you in the long run. So stay calm. We will get through this, I promise you. We've been through so many things. Yeah, Paul.
So you were talking about the banks putting pressure on the appraisers to control price, basically. Besides expectations, what else can we do to try to make the deal stay together?
So I think that's a great question. If I'm the buyer's agent or the listing agent, if I'm you, I'm getting the best comps possible to substantiate the purchase price and then submit them to the appraiser. Now, they may not take them. They may not want to meet with you. A lot of agents back in the day would meet the appraiser. The listing agents would meet the appraiser at the house with a stack of comps and hand it to them. Now, some appraisers would say, no, that's unethical. I'm not going to use them. Some would say, you know what? Thank you for helping me out in my job. It's not going to influence, but at least I know there are comps out there. So that's what I would be doing, Paul. Because when the listing agent is going to the house, you're fighting for your customer, right? For the appraisal.
So what we do on,
go ahead.
What we do on all of ours is we have any properties that we think that we're going to have challenges with appraisers, they actually are receptive to that. You don't have to give them just 3, give them 6 or 7. The less work they have to do, the better they are at coming to value on our properties. And 99% of the times, they come back with a good appraisal if we help them, assist them with that paperwork. We had an appraiser come in and teach in our market center, and he advised the same thing.
Yeah.
You just do it in a nice way. You're just doing it by offering them something. You're not saying, oh, here are the comps that you need to use. You're just letting them know. So like Tamika said, they're not having to go out there and search for every single one. You're making their job easier.
Yeah, I spoke with a lender on one of my deals, and he said that lending has gone up 500%, and this was a week and a half ago. So the appraisal that I'm getting won't even be done till next Monday, and it's been 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So if you give them these, give them some comps, it will make their job easier, and they're so busy now that they'll probably be grateful to it. And I noticed that every time I speak to the lender on this particular deal, I thank him, and I'm so nice to him. And I say, I know you're so overworked right now, and I really appreciate what you're doing, for Mr. Hanna and Mrs. Hanna. And I just want you to know how much I appreciate that. And that really goes a long way. So it's the same thing with the appraiser. Hey, I know how busy you are. So I thought maybe if I, left these comps for you, that maybe that might just help make your job a little easier because I know how busy you really are.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So does anybody have any questions about this topic or any other topic that you'd like to have answers or input from your peers?
I was going to say, Rich, one thing that a lot of my sellers mandate is rush appraisals. Some lenders only charge an additional $100. Some don't have any additional fees. But if it's not going to appraise, then let's find out about it, within 10 days off the market, rather than 2 months off the market. So some of my sellers are even open to, if there's a rush fee, we'll pay it, or whatever, just to ensure that the home's going to close or that it's going to appraise.
Or have them get an appraisal before it goes on the market.
Or Keller Mortgage does their appraisal right off the bat also.
I was just going to say that, Susan.
Yeah. So Susan, not only do they do it on the front end, if the deal doesn't close, who pays for the appraisal with Keller Mortgage?
Nobody.
Keller Mortgage.
Keller Mortgage swallows.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm
And
just letting you know, I don't know of any mortgage company that does that. That is, if the deal falls apart because they get paid out of closing. They don't get paid for the appraisal up front. So if the deal doesn't close, the buyer doesn't have to pay for the appraisal.
You know what else, Rich?
Yeah.
I had a deal where the listing agent, the appraisal came in super low, and the listing agent and I both worked together and contacted Keller Mortgage about that appraisal, that we had a year-old appraisal that was showing the home much higher, in fact, above the sale price.
Yeah.
And do you know that they actually went ahead and ordered a second appraisal, and they did not charge my buyer for that appraisal?
Wow.
I'm telling you, I love Keller Mortgage.
So, Deborah, I
So
saw
do
you
I.
raise your hand before and I didn't notice. Did you have a question, Deborah Keck?
No, not at this time.
Hopefully we got you an answer. I apologize. I wasn't ignoring you. I didn't notice it. I just saw that.
I have a comment. Oh,
Go ahead.
I can't take credit for this. I saw on Facebook from First International Title. But if you have any closings coming up, have your buyers check with the bank to see if their lobbies are open to do the wires. A lot of them are by appointment only, so they're not able to walk in and just wire their funds. So we need to be communicating that as well, because they need to be able to get their money to the closing table.
Yeah. BB&T is closed. Their lobby's closed today.
Can I add to that, Kim?
Yeah.
Buyers should be wiring their money days before closing.
Mm-hmm.
Not day of, days.
Yes.
Plural.
Amen.
3-4 days before closing, the money wire should go out. The money sits with it. Remember, the money doesn't transfer until everything has been done and funded, right? So the money doesn't leave the escrow. So if you're going to closing, my advice to my buyers is to get the money wired now. It sits in the escrow account. So when you get to the closing, it's just a matter of paperwork. Don't get delayed because of a bank or a change policy or a money wire.
Rich, I have a question.
Yes.
Along that line, if they wire the full amount that they need to wire, and at the very last minute, something happens that the transaction falls apart at the very last minute, is the title company going to require a release and cancellation for all of that money or only for the escrow?
You know what? That's a great question. I've never had that asked. I'm going to just start with saying I'm not an attorney. I've always been. Do you notice how many times I use that term? Right? It's
me too. Me too.
Rear end, right? So I'm not an attorney. I would say to get the proof positive answer, Susan, would be to call the legal hotline. If I were the devil's advocate, I would say yes, because on the contract it said $2,000 escrow, $1,000 escrow. So that money was not part of the contract. And again, I'm not an attorney. That money was sent in as closing. So if the deal terminated for any reason, even if the buyer went into default, I'm thinking that's not part of the contract because you didn't say that you were going to bring an additional escrow, which would be part of the contract. Because sometimes we'll give you $1,000 today, and in 2 weeks I'll give you $5,000 more. That's part of the contract. This wasn't part of the contract. So the answer is I don't know. It depends. You'd need to speak to an attorney. I'm not an attorney, and if I had to bet on it, I would say no.
I would reach out to the title companies and ask them as well, because they have attorneys that they go to. Yeah. I wouldn't take it verbally. I would take it.
Title company. She's right.
Yeah, I would ask them to give that to you in writing. But just a suggestion.
So guys, with that being said, I've got my next Zoom call in about 8 minutes. I've got to get off. So I'm hoping you get these Debbie's putting out these tapes to your team leaders, and the team leaders should be sending them out to the entire roster of all of our calls. I really thought today's call was great. You know why? Because you guys participated at a very high level today. Hearing from everybody was very important. We'll do this again on Monday. I'll have Donnie on Monday. We're going to post a live Lead Accelerator ad so you can watch that and whatever questions come about. Make sure you have some.
Awesome. Thank you.
Same time, 12 o'clock Monday, guys.
Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.